Hi, Stuart here, and another exciting episode of 12 Factor. Today, number 8, concurrency. So as always, I direct you to 12 Factor Net, where you can read all about their comments in the 12 Factor Manifesto. And as always, we're going to drill into some of them a little bit. Big application systems, as we said before, are typically compostable. In other words, they have lots of different components that all talk to each other. As we said in the process video, they can be the same kind or different kinds, but the idea is that your entire business process is made out of lots of processes with dependencies and backing services, and we do configuration and we do all the other good things. We call that collection of running processes of different numeracy and different type a formation. So in order to scale out, we need to have processes of the same type be able to run concurrently. However, the bane of our existence is singletons. Any backing resource that doesn't deal with concurrency well. Microsoft SQL Server, in fact, is designed out of the gate to handle lots of concurrent connections and queries and updates, and there's all kinds of strategies, pessimistic updates, optimistic updates, and so on. But like SFTP and file systems, those are two big ones that we run into in the enterprise world a lot. They are fundamentally not good at allowing multiple reads and writes, or maybe they allow multiple reads, but multiple writes are a problem. In file systems, sometimes if you are reading a file nobody else can, or if you can read the file, maybe you can't write the file and you want to do that. And so what you've sadly done is you've encountered a singleton, and we don't like singletons because singletons are a single point of failure, and we don't like those. The whole point to 12-factor applications is, in fact, to avoid that. You need some strategies. So the very best thing that you can do is load balance, because in a load balance scenario, right, you've got a widget and then you've got a pool of processes behind it of all the same type. So a web API, for example, or a website. And because they're stateless, right, that's a key thing about processes. And actually what we say is they have transitory state. But because they have transitory state, if we go and we call the same service type over and over again, we really don't care what instance we end up on. Websites, web services, functions as a service, lots of different things are quite happy to be load balanced. The next best thing is, and usually this shows up in backing services, like SQL Server clusters or Oracle clusters, or clusters of CockroachDB, which is a high availability, indestructible version of Postgres if you implement it properly. Clusters like that are great, not only because of scale out and you avoid a single point of failure, but because they behave properly if there are lots of readers and writers. And then sort of the next best thing down from there is an electoral group, or sometimes they're called an election group, or things are queue mediated, and so every time we get a request, requester A and requester B will get different queue items, and that's okay. We like that behavior, and if we use leasing, and you can go watch our other video on queue strategies about how, what that is. But the idea is that in an electoral group, you can have redundancy. That is to say, we can have many processes running, but typically only one of them is responding to operations and queries. Unlike the cluster model where the entire cluster or parts of it can, that are the facade over the cluster can respond. Typically speaking, in primary, secondary type scenarios, only one can. And so in those cases, if one of them, the primary, stops working, what we hope happens is the others notice this and go, we need to force an election. So of those of us who are alive, we're all going to try and vote, and whoever wins the election will become the new primary, and we'll mark the old primary as being not available, And what will happen is over time, if that one comes back, it'll rejoin the electoral group, but it'll rejoin not as the primary, but just as a member of the group. And the results will be if then a different primary, the current primary, fails, then there can be election, and that one could be reelected or somebody else could be elected. And you can see a nice demo of that in our No Singletons video and demo. There are lots of strategies to avoid singletons, which brings me to the other thing about concurrency, and that is if we have a compostable application made out of lots of different pieces, it shouldn't matter one whit what order they start in. So, for example, we expect our backing services to have resiliency, and we talk about that in that video. And we expect processes to be well behaved, and so they come up and they go, oh, am I ready to start doing things? Oh, that's not available yet, I'll wait until it is. And so we really don't want startup order dependencies in our 12-factor apps. Thank you for your kind attention.